I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. The sun casts a dim glow through the blinds, marking yet another unremarkable Sunday. I sit at the edge of our bed, tying my sneakers for a morning jog, a routine that offers me solitude away from Jean's constant comparisons. "You're so much like your father, only weaker," she often chides with a smirk that's become too familiar. I usually shrug it off, focusing instead on the rhythm of my breath and the pavement under my feet. Today, however, a different plan forms in my mind, sparked by Jean's oddly secretive behavior this past week. Her phone buzzes more frequently, and her whispers into the receiver slice through the silence of our apartment. Curiosity gnaws at me, pushing me to skip my run and find out what, or who, captures so much of her attention. I decide to feign departure, slipping out with my keys and a light jacket. Instead of heading down to the street, I quietly make my way back up the stairwell, my heart pounding not from exertion but from a cocktail of dread and anticipation. The door to our apartment is slightly ajar, odd, considering Jean's usual paranoia about security. Pushing the door open, the sounds that greet me are unmistakable. Soft moans sync with a rhythmic creaking from the bedroom. My stomach churns as I approach, each step heavier than the last. The door swings open on its silent hinges, revealing the betrayal in full view: Jean, scantily clad, with the man I've admired my entire life, my father. His toolbox lies open, his hands skillfully navigating not through wires or bolts, but the contours of Jean's body. The shock pins me to the spot, my voice a choked whisper lost in the sea of their passion. "Dad?" It's all I manage before the scene before me blurs, tainted by the sting of tears and the heat of raw, seething anger. The room falls silent, the only sound now the harsh breaths of three shattered souls. Jean scrambles off the bed, her apologies a jumbled mess of excuses and pleas. My father, expression unreadable, simply straightens his clothes, his eyes avoiding mine. "I can explain, son," he starts, his voice unnaturally calm. "But I don't want to hear lies or apologies." A cold resolve settles over me, replacing the hot rush of my initial shock. "Save it," I spit out, turning on my heel. I heard enough. The apartment door slams behind me, the sound echoing in my ears like a judge's gavel. I know what I need to do. The seed of revenge plants itself firmly in my mind, watered by every whispered comparison Jean ever made between me and my father. She thought I was weak, but I would prove her wrong. As I stride away, the outlines of my plan begin to take shape. Jean's life, as she knows it, is about to crumble. I'll make sure of it. The humiliation and betrayal will be returned tenfold, and by the time I'm done, she will wish she had never uttered those comparisons. The sun now fully rises, casting long shadows that mirror the darkness blossoming in my heart. The morning after the betrayal, the city seems indifferent to my turmoil, its streets bustling as if to mock my internal chaos. I make my way to the office, my mind racing, not with the usual business concerns but with a meticulous blueprint for retribution. Today, the real work begins. As I push through the revolving doors of the building, I rehearse the confrontation that awaits. Jean, unaware of my plans, has called me thrice, her messages oscillating between desperate apologies and attempts to explain. I ignore them all, each unread message fueling my resolve. I bypass my office and head straight to the legal department. Lisa, our head attorney, greets me with a puzzled look. "Everything okay?" she asks, noting my uncharacteristically grim expression. "Lisa, I need the best divorce lawyer we have on retainer," I say without preamble. "And I need something else, detailed information on freezing bank accounts." Her eyes widen, but she nods, understanding the gravity of my request. "I'll set up the meetings." "Anything else?" "Full privacy on this. No leaks." I turn to leave, then stop. "And Lisa, thank you." Back in my office, the cityscape outside my window blurs as I plot each move. Jean's luxurious tastes, funded largely by our joint accounts, would be the first to feel the crunch. I'll make sure she can't drain the accounts on her way out. Midday arrives, and with it, a call from the divorce lawyer, Edward. I've prepared the initial paperwork, Edward informs me. We can move as fast as you want. Good, I reply curtly. I want to file today. And freeze the accounts immediately. Understood. I'll need you to come in to sign some documents and discuss some strategy. Give me an hour. I'll be there. The office feels suffocating, each tick of the clock echoing too loudly as I wait. Finally, I leave for Edward's office, my steps resolute. The meeting is brief and to the point. Papers signed, strategies devised, and by the time I leave, the legal machinations to dismantle Jean's world are in full swing. I return home to a barrage of texts and missed calls, Jean's tone turning from pleading to frantic. I ignore them, focusing instead on removing her belongings from our bedroom. Her clothes, her jewelry, all the trappings of the life she's betrayed, they're packed into boxes, marked impersonally for storage. As I'm sealing the last box, my phone rings. It's Jean, audibly distressed. Please, we need to talk. I'm coming over, she says before I can object. Minutes later, she's at the door, her eyes red, her composure frayed. Why won't you talk to me? Why are my cards not working? Her voice is a mix of anger and desperation. I know about you and my father, Jean. What is there to talk about? I keep my voice steady, my stance unyielding. Her face crumples, the facade breaking. It was a mistake. I was weak. Please, we can fix this. There's nothing left to fix. You've made your choice, and now you live with it. My reply is cold, devoid of the warmth she once knew. Where are my things? She asks, her eyes scanning the room, landing on the boxes. Gone. Like you will be. I hand her the divorce papers. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Jean's shock is palpable, her defeat absolute as she takes the papers, her hands trembling. You're really doing this? I am. You said I was like my father, but you were wrong. I'm nothing like him. And I will never see you again after this. As she leaves, the door closing with a finality that echoes through the empty room, I feel a twinge of satisfaction mingled with sorrow. The first moves in my plan for revenge are set, the pieces in motion. But as the silence settles around me, I know the storm is only just beginning. The intrigue of how far I will go, and at what cost, remains cloaked in the shadows of the coming chapters. The days following the initiation of the divorce proceedings pass in a blur of icy maneuvers and legal exchanges. My office becomes less a place of business and more a command center for the unfolding drama of my disintegrating marriage. Each morning brings a new challenge, each evening closes with a step closer to my ultimate goal, absolute retribution. One chilly Wednesday morning, I find myself at a quaint coffee shop across the street from my lawyer Edward's office. We are meeting to discuss the latest developments over a quick breakfast. Edward arrives, his face etched with the seriousness of our agenda. Good morning, he greets, taking a seat. I have updates. The court has frozen the joint accounts and assets as requested. She won't be able to access any funds or sell any properties without court approval. I nod, sipping my coffee, its bitterness mirroring my mood. And the divorce proceedings? Moving as planned. She's hired a lawyer, quite reputable, but we're well prepared. Edward's tone is reassuring, yet I sense the complexity of what's yet to come. Good. Make sure the pressure doesn't ease up. I want her to feel cornered, helpless. The words taste like ash as they leave my mouth, but the burn of betrayal fuels them. Edward raises an eyebrow, a slight hesitation in his demeanor. I understand your feelings, but remember, we must stay within the bounds of legality. I know, I reply crisply. And I intend to. But within those bounds, I will push as hard as necessary. As we wrap up our meeting, my phone buzzes. It's a text from an unknown number, but the message sends a jolt through me. Meet me at Marlow Park at noon if you want to know the whole truth about Jean and your father. Intrigued and cautious, I decide to go. Marlow Park is quiet at this time of year, a fitting venue for secretive revelations. I arrive early, scanning the area. A figure approaches from the opposite side, a woman, her coat pulled tight against the wind. "Are you the one who texted me?" I ask as she stops in front of me. "Yes," she replies, her voice low. "You don't know me, but I know you. And I know Jean. I think you deserve the whole story. And why would you help me?" My suspicion is palpable, the cold not just from the breeze. "Because I was where you are once," she says, her eyes reflecting a pain familiar to my own. "Jean and your father, they've been involved for years. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. They were careful, but I found out. I was involved with your father before he shifted his attention." Her words hit like a winter storm, each one chilling me deeper. "How long?" My voice barely rises above a whisper. "Over 3 years," she confesses, and then delves into details, dates, places, whispers of deceit that paint a stark picture of a long-term affair. I absorb each piece, the puzzle of Jean's betrayal assembling into a clear, sharp image. Why come forward now? Because I saw what it did to me, and no one else should go through that. She hands me an envelope. "Proof. In case you need it." As she leaves, I stand frozen, not just from the bite of the wind but from the cold realization of the depth of their deception. The proof weighs heavy in my pocket as I head back to my car. My resolve hardens, my path forward is clear. Jean and my father have played their game for years, but the endgame approaches, and I will be the one to make the final move. As winter's chill deepens, so too does the cold resolve in my heart. Armed with the irrefutable proof of Jean and my father's prolonged deceit, I craft my final move in this twisted game. My plans, once a desperate bid to salvage my pride, now morph into a calculated strike that will leave nothing but scorched earth in its wake. The final court date looms, a day I orchestrate to be the theater of my vengeance. I invite both Jean and my father under the pretense of a proposed settlement, a final discussion to end things amicably. They, unaware of each other's invitation, agree eagerly, each driven by their own guilt and greed. The court is quiet, the usual hustle muted by the early hour. Jean arrives first, her face a mask of tentative hope. "You wanted to see me?" she asks, her voice betraying a hint of nervousness. "Just waiting for one more," I say, checking my watch with feigned casualness. Moments later, my father walks in, his surprise at seeing Jean mirrored on her face. "What is this?" Jean's voice shakes, her eyes darting between me and my father. "I thought it's only fair to discuss everything together," I say, my words icy as I hand each of them a folder, the same evidence provided by the woman in the park. Their faces pale as they leaf through the photos, messages, and dates detailing their betrayal. My father tries to speak, but I cut him off. "Save it. I've heard enough lies." The lawyer clears his throat, stepping forward with a stack of papers. "If you'll both sign here, we can finalize the terms of the divorce and the dissolution of your joint assets," he says, indicating where they need to put their signatures. Jean looks at me, tears starting to form. "Please, can we talk about this?" "No more talking. You've chosen your path, and now you'll walk it, alone." As they sign, my phone buzzes, an auction house confirming the sale of my father's prized collection of vintage cars, sold at a fraction of their value to further strip him of his wealth and pride. The confirmation of the sale of Jean's beloved art gallery follows, an establishment transferred to a trust that will never allow her control or profits. "I made sure everything you both cherished is gone," I say quietly, watching as they absorb the full weight of their losses. The lawyer hands them each their copy of the divorce decree and asset division. "It's done," he announces. No one celebrates, there's only a heavy silence. Jean's face crumples, the finality hitting her. My father stands, stoic, but his eyes reveal a flicker of regret. Neither can hold my gaze. As they leave, heading their separate ways, I remain. The silence of the courtroom echoes the hollowness inside me. I've won, but the victory is as cold as the winds that whip against the courthouse windows. In the days that follow, I watch from a distance as they attempt to rebuild from the ruins I've left them. Jean moves to a small apartment on the city's edge, her social circles shrinking as the truth of her betrayal spreads. My father, once a respected businessman, finds his reputation shredded, his financial empire crumbling like a house of sand. I've erased them from my life, their betrayal repaid in full. Yet as I sit in my now empty home, the shadows lengthen and the silence deepens. Revenge has cost me more than I anticipated. I realize the emptiness will not be filled by their suffering, it is a hollow victory, won by forfeiting my own capacity for forgiveness. As winter yields to spring, the cold in my heart remains, a permanent chill, a reminder of the cost of hatred and betrayal. I look to the future, to a life rebuilt from the ashes of the past, knowing I will never allow myself to be deceived again. The deception is over, and so are we, forever parting ways in the shadow of our shared ruin.